Welcome to the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. I'm your host, Jacob Cooper, best-selling author of Life After Breath and the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. For those of you who are new to my podcast, we welcome you. Please consider hitting that subscribe button, sharing your comments in the comments section, and you could also follow the audio syndicated podcast on mindbodyspirit.fm. Today's guest on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder is a return guest, and her name is Dolores Cruz. Dolores is a multiple time author. She's also a shining light parent, and she'll be talking about her son, Eric, and his crossing over experience and how that has transformed the life that she lived. And so she's going to touch upon supernatural phenomenon that she's had with her son, Eric, as well as the honoring of his life and the grief insights that she's had in her own journey and how she's been able to balance both the spirit connection as well as going through her own grief journey and the emotional connections and processing. So without further ado, we welcome on the lovely Dolores Cruz back on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. Dolores Cruz, welcome back here on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. It's great to have you back here.
Oh, I'm just so glad to be back. I'm very grateful to have this opportunity with you.
Yeah, I know a couple of months ago, I had the distinct honor of having you and Dr. Mark on the show to talk about the book that you were compiled in with Dr. Mark. But I figured, and we both figured that, you know what, we really needed to really shine more light on a shining light as yourself in your story because it's so profound. For viewers who are maybe not necessarily familiar with your story and didn't listen to that interview, which I highly recommend listening to the interview with Dolores and Dr. Mark Bitzik, could you just share a little bit about your journey because it is very moving, inspirational, and I know it will touch so many, and many could relate to it who are, viewers of my channel.
Of course. Well, I'm a mother to four adult children at this point. I have my husband, Joey, and we have four children. But what happened in 2017 is our youngest son, Eric, who was 24 at the time, was killed in a car accident. And it just shook us to the core. It just changed our worlds immediately. It was, as you can imagine, just despairing and it was like drowning. It was like looking for the air. And certainly for me, the way I felt to me was that I had just fallen into a deep, dark abyss and I couldn't see light anywhere. I didn't understand. And so immediately for me, I, I knew he was around. My background has, I was raised in a religious background, traditional religious background. And I always knew or believed or know that there's more than this, but I never needed to take the time to really look at it, to really read more about it, to learn more about it, to take that time. But boy, I had to now because I needed to find my son. So what happened right away is I had a therapist. That's just me. I know not everybody wants to do that. I needed some help. I found an amazing grief specialist, therapist, and I started um, reading a lot of books. People handed me books, which I believe were meant to be because I got books that led me then to the next book or to the next person. I found help through David Kessler and all he has to offer as a grief specialist, and then eventually helping parents heal. And that came about 10 months later or so. What an amazing organization. It's an international organization for parents who have children that have transitioned to spirit. And it's what's especially wonderful is that there's an open discussion about afterlife, about continued connections with our children. Um, I got right into it. Eventually, with I knew as I went along and was receiving just so many signs, as we like to call them. I like to call them connections as well with Eric, and really coming to understand that he hadn't gone anywhere. Yes, his physical body was no longer here, but he was absolutely here and around, is still, of course. I I came to the point eventually that I thought, I think maybe I can help. I really wanted to help. I was looking for a local group for helping parents heal, and I'm in Los Angeles area, but there wasn't any. And Elizabeth, who is director of Helping Parents Heal and founder, actually, told me, "Well, why don't you start one?" and
Mhm.
she's, which is good. She's good at pointing that out, which is true. As it turned out, there were two other moms that were thinking of the same thing. So the three of us began our local chapter for Helping Parents Heal. And along those lines, I eventually became a caring listener, still am, for Helping Parents Heal, available to speak on the phone with anyone who just is going through this, likely early on, and just needs someone to speak to, just like I did. So I've done that. And what it also led me to is interesting. My therapist said to me, "Oh, within a couple months," she said, "Do you have a book in you?"
Mhm.
And I told her, I don't know. Uh, I never thought about that. I haven't written books previously. But what was interesting is I had read, read, I don't know, over 100 books, couple of hundred maybe, about spirituality and grief and afterlife and near death experiences. And I had read some books
Mhm.
written by other parents whose child had passed away who told the story. And I did think to myself, well, I can do that. I know I can do that for sure because there's plenty to tell. Well, by some interesting synchronicities, the time came, and I wrote my first book, which I don't know if I should go ahead and show you, but anyway, this is "Look Around: A Mother's Journey from Grief and Despair to Healing and Hope," and it's the story of Eric. It's the story of our family. It's the story of his passing to his new life and all the signs and synchronicities and how I moved forward with him in this journey, and it continues. The journey continues.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was the first book, but, just a few years later, I took my journal entries and
Mhm.
created a bird called Wisdom, which is actually free verse poetry pulled from my journals, recounting the same story, but in a whole different way.
A
And
bird called Wisdom on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. I love the signs.
yeah, that's true, yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, the general idea of what my story is here.
Mhm. Just to backtrack and, with, your son's passing, I'm sure it was, beyond any descriptive word what you were experiencing and enduring, and it just seems like the most chaotic event that has no rhyme, reason, purpose. It's just, I can't imagine what you were going through. How did you get to a point where you decided to say, "You know what? I'm going to maybe try to look at this from another angle, or maybe there's a possibility that there's something else going on, beyond what I'm feeling at this point." Like, what got you to that point?
In the beginning, boy, as I mentioned, I sure felt like all any light in the world, any joy had just been immediately extinguished. It was so painful. My heart physically hurt, and I know you've probably had other people who've described that. It's true, boy, and my stomach. I mean, that's just kind of where it
Mhm.
goes for me. I was in pain here in heart and stomach for many, many weeks. Um, I I just didn't know. Yes, I've never done this. What do I do? Where do I go? And I knew I do want to say one thing. I didn't know how I could live again. I didn't know if I would ever feel joy again. But I never said to myself that I will never feel joy again. I just said, I don't know how. And I asked, I do have a connection with God. I know people like different words for God, but I'm just going to say God, divine source creator. source of all love,
Yeah.
and it's all good. It's all meaningful. And I just asked, in fact, I asked in a very angry way. I was angry. What is going on? I need to know. You need to let me know. Um, what's happening with my son? What do I do? And that was my prayer for many, many nights. Uh, and little by little, I really felt I was led. I was led. One of the first, well, okay, I was led to books and people, but let me mention something else. I was also feeling connections with Eric already.
Mhm.
And so I knew. And
Mhm.
the very first one, this might sound something that someone else might say, well, coincidence, right? But I had been crying out to him for days and days and telling him, I need him. I need a hug from him. I don't understand. About 10 days after his passing, I went to Whole Foods Market local, and I saw a couple of tables outside of the store, like often there are with people collecting donations for something. But I recognized this organization. It's a drug and alcohol resistance education program that had been to my school. I'm a retired school teacher, elementary school. Anyway, I recognized them. So I thought, I'll make a donation. I think it's worth it. Came out, there's two tables with two young people, a woman and a man. Young man, I go over to him. And as I talk for him for just a bit, chat, I write a check. He happens to look like Eric's age, Eric's height, Eric's build, Eric's personality.
Mhm.
I enjoyed talking to him. I hand him the check. He writes a receipt and says to me when he gives it to me, "How about a hug?" And I mean, who says that? I have never had anyone say that before then or since then. And in that moment, I'm like, Eric. And I go, "Oh, yes, I'll take a hug." I hugged the young man, felt like I was hugging Eric, and walked away just blown away.
Huh.
Whoa. I had asked for a hug, and I got a hug.
Mhm.
So I knew he was there, and I can, so these were signs that were telling me there's more. And I was eventually led not only, well, I know there's your near death experience, which I have learned about more recently. But in the
Mhm.
beginning, it was Dr. Mary Neal. Someone handed me that book, and that just, wow. I started to get a better sense, not that we'll ever really know in these bodies, but a better understanding of how much there is and how amazing it is, how beautiful it is. And that Eric is in that, but he's also here, which then leads me to believe, we could go on, but it's all here, right? I just started to shift my perspective. I started to see light again. I started to feel joy again.
Mhm.
And it just moved from there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
For people who, maybe have had a loved one cross over and are wanting signs but not seeing them or sensing them, and they feel understandably frustrated or maybe envious of those who are seeing or experiencing signs. What maybe have you learned from your own experience as a way, to maybe attract signs? It seems like for you, getting very specific and asking was a way, but for people who are we all know the types who are like, "I don't see any signs." Like, what would you say to them? And because I know that could be very painful, and they could feel very disenfranchised in their grief and feel like, "Okay, I'm not special because my loved one's not showing me signs or I'm not seeing them." What
Mhm.
would you say to that?
The first thing I would say is to hopefully you're not saying to yourself, I never get signs. Say to yourself, I wonder when that next sign is coming. So basically what I'm saying is to be open.
Mhm,
And I've heard people mention something and go, yeah, but it probably wasn't. And the thing is, it probably was the sign that you're looking at.
mhm,
It, it can be anything. I've literally seen Eric on 2 occasions and heard him, but those are what I call the big ones, and that's not always the case. And that's certainly over 8 years. It's been 8 years. It was just a couple of times. So I can't make that happen. I talk to Eric. I think this is part of it. I talk to Eric. I've talked to him every day since that day. I talk to him sometimes out loud. I talk to him in my mind. I talk to him when I'm in the car. He was a musician. He was a drummer. Listening to music, I talk to him about the music, about the drums, about the instrument. So there's a constant connection and communication anyway. So whether or not I get a sign, I'm talking to him. I'm not going to assume he's gone because he's not.
Mhm.
So I think that's part of it, is having this energy between yourself and your loved one just every day. It's always there. And I look at it, I look around. By the way, name of the first book, right? Look around. And that's something Eric had said before his passing, that there's a whole story to that.
Mhm.
But I look, and numbers. I mean, his birthday, right? I mean, there's all kinds of meaningful numbers. His birthday, um, 311 is an agreement between Eric and I. I talked to him and say, and there was, I talked to him about why 311. And then you see the 311s, and it's not even just seeing it once, maybe, but
Mhm.
in the oddest places, or maybe I saw this license plate and then I saw that billboard, and they all happened within a minute.
Mhm.
Then it's like, hello, hello. Trusting that people talk about the song on the radio just at the right time with the right lyrics. Take it. That is your loved one communicating with you. My husband travels to New York once a year on business, and I usually join him for a few of those because he's there for quite a while. But I come in for a little while, and I had joined him. This was I don't know, a year or two after Eric's passing. He meets me in the lobby. We go upstairs. I look at the number on the door, and I went, "Oh my god!" It was 2311, and Eric's birthday is November 23rd, the
Mm.
23rd. So
A lot of that, yeah.
I mean, why would I just go, "That's interesting," and walk away? I mean, that's it. Something especially that's so random like that. I told you 311 was an important number. At my older son's wedding,
Mhm.
what was the room number that he got? 311. I mean,
Mhm.
of all. So
Mhm.
I would say be open,
Mhm.
uh, look around, take anything that that you feel. You think that's interesting. That could be my love. Yeah, it
Mhm.
is, and it's really fun. Uh, there's so many ways. I've got my book loaded with the
Mhm.
signs and synchronicities.
Yeah. I love the title, because a lot of people say "look up" as if, like, your son or daughter is like an airplane, like, in the sky or something like that, and they're just kinda chilling in the clouds. While the clouds are beautiful, from what you're saying is very profound where yeah, it's true, like, they could be in faraway places to a degree, but they're also right here too. And they're right around us. Then it's just very much congruent with what I saw in my NDE that the other side isn't a million miles away. It's like overlaying this reality and all around us. So that's a really profound statement that you make because I think it rings true and it's also empowering that we don't have to like look 1,000 miles away, that they're still right here, which is a beautiful title as well as invocation for the spirit realm.
Absolutely, and that's something else that I learned about, that how much more there is, and that it's not far away. If you
Mhm.
wanna call it heaven, heaven is not over there somewhere,
Mhm.
because if my child's in heaven, then he would be over there, but he's not, heaven's not. And that's something that has grown in my understanding since his passing. I used to think heaven was over there. And now clearly to me, it's just clear that it's not. It's he and all my loved ones, all of, our ancestors are here and around us. And um, our Thich Nhat Hanh has mentioned spiritual ancestors. And the way I took it is anyone who has guided you and led you spiritually, if you want to say Jesus, any of the saints, or whoever, whatever's your tradition, they're here too, right?
Mhm.
Because it's all here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I think at times when challenging moments or tragedies happen, that could certainly shake up, one's faith, and it really will test, a lot of the foundations. Some people could be fair weather in spirituality when real challenges come in that really tests a lot of the foundation. For people who might have really bad things, like how did you personally reconcile your dynamic with the universe or God? Because it could be very justifiable to walk around very agitated and still at times sure. Like, how can people maybe move that needle, from anger to what you're experiencing in moments, like what you described as gratitude? That's a very drastic shift
Yeah.
and juxtaposition in many ways. Like, how did you work that out?
It was not something that I planned. It unfolded.
Mhm.
I shifted as I started to mention. There was a major shift in my spiritual beliefs, if you want to call it that, in my understanding. Again, if God has often in many traditions been uh, shown as someone over there, maybe a male, right? I know you've probably heard this before, but some people think it is this old man in the sky who we ask for things, and sometimes he says okay, and sometimes he doesn't. And is
Mhm.
he ignoring it? It's not at all what I see. It's once I understood, and I have another spiritual teacher who's guided me this way, that God is not only all around, but in all of us. And God is the creator, the source of love, but not going to pick favorites, not going to choose you, or you're not good enough, or you need to do better, or maybe I should. But it's none of that. Because God is in all of us, it's also up to us. And okay, so the quote that I'm thinking of from James Finley is God protects us from nothing but sustains us in all things.
Mhm.
So yes, we of course we pray for things to go well. We want to be protected, but the truth is, even in and this is a hard one for me to understand, but even in what we will call the bad or the painful in
Mhm.
particular, God's there anyway, not as a protector, but as a support, as a love that surrounds us, as a way to work through, to get through our challenges. And I also understood that our challenges are important. We can't come here and have everything go great and grow. We must experience difficulties and challenges so that we move forward and push forth and grow from that. Um, and by the way, one of the people I spoke to very early on, just weeks after Eric's passing, who interesting man. He was an ex priest, so he wasn't a priest anymore. But he told me he had been at during 9/11. He was at the Pentagon as a chaplain. He was a priest at the time. He said people would come up and say, "Where's God?" Which, of course, is what we all say when these things happen.
Mhm.
Hello, where's God? And his response, he explained to me to them was, "Look around at the people.
Mhm.
That's where God is." So I shifted into this. I know I'm going to continue to have more pain in the future, more difficult times, and rather than see it as a bad thing that shouldn't happen,
Mhm.
maybe it's supposed to happen. Maybe there's a reason why it's happening. Maybe I can grow from this. Maybe my response to that, if it's not an angry response, but a response of how can I serve? How can I help? What can I do? That might help, hopefully, ideally, others. And then maybe if they get that, the whole ripple, right? Everything ripples out. When you offer love, that can ripple out. And when you offer hate too, then that can
Mhm.
ripple out.
It seems throughout you're saying that potentially service and empathy is a byproduct that could be birthed from pain. Is that in a way what you're saying?
I am. It's definitely what I have learned, people I've spoken to through Helping Parents Heal or other communities agree that they have become more compassionate towards others and helpful and wanting to serve. And it's true that another way to heal, and I'm careful with that word, some people don't like it, but healing is an ongoing, it'll continue for the rest of your life. So it's not like I'm healed. Okay, everything's good. No, I mean, we're continuing, but moving forward in healing is definitely helped with serving others, reaching out a hand to the next person who's going through this. And I feel it when I lead my groups, my once a month local groups for Helping Parents Heal. I feel like I'm doing something not only for me, but for Eric. So in honor of Eric. And
Mhm.
yeah, so definitely.
Yeah. I think what a lot of people come to me in my office is what they'll say is, "I know that," and I'm trying not to use this word, but just for practicality standpoint, "I know that death or a passing of a loved one is transformational for them, but it doesn't feel like it's transformational for me. I don't feel transformed. I feel that I'm just stuck." How could one transform? Because I see a lot of people who, like yourself, who from that situation find transformation. Is it by feeling what they're feeling, going through what they're going through, or just like ignoring that and reading all these metaphysical books and not like entertaining where they're at or being present with where they're at?
So let me just clarify. Are you saying that the people who have experienced the loss have feel transformed, or that they say, well, they're transformed, but I'm not getting that?
My loved one is transformed. I know they're
Ah,
okay,
okay.
but
Yeah.
I'm not okay.
We are here for a reason. I know that. Um, yes, they have transformed in a major way,
Mhm,
and that is guiding us to transform in a way for whatever our purpose here is on earth. I'm okay with not knowing specifically what my purpose is, but I feel like I trust I'm on whatever track I'm on
mhm,
is the right one. I think I believe we have guides and helpers for that to move us forward. But the other thing is just reading books has helped,
mhm,
sitting in silence
mhm,
to get to know who you are. And when you do that, you also know more about God or divine source because we are connected. Sitting in silence to just be who you are and feel what you feel because it's all valid. All that grief is so valid. We're not trying to get away from it.
mhm,
We're trying to honor it and be with it because in that is where the transformation will occur. Richard Rohr says it is, and somebody else has said, so I don't think he was the only one, but it is through great love and great suffering that we transform.
mhm,
So that is where the transformation is. It is in that pain. So allow it and look at it. That's being, and often that is best in silence because if you have a lot of distractions going on and people around and your music playing and the TV, it doesn't happen that way. But
mhm,
I love nature. I have this amazing pine tree in my front yard. I don't know, probably almost 100 years old. It's gorgeous. I find healing there. I used to lay under that tree in the beginning when I was in so much pain, and I found peace.
mhm,
And I couldn't explain it, but I was lying on the grass and I was looking through the branches of this amazing tree into the blue sky with the white clouds, and I found peace.
mhm,
Um, Allowing that to happen because it is in that moment that something will occur, and you may not be able to explain it. A lot of these things go beyond what words can offer. Words don't really justify always, sometimes. But
mhm,
yeah, and then the community, which is why I'm with Helping Parents Heal and which is why I lead the groups. It is so helpful and healing to hear others, to hear their stories, to see what they're doing, how they're transforming, to share your own. We have to share our stories. And by expressing that, we can also begin to feel that transformation.
Mhm. Yeah, I because I love what you share with helping parents heal, and obviously Elizabeth is a dear friend of mine and the first ever guest that I've had on the channel for specific intention of the energy that I was trying to put out. But you make a great point that I always recommend, for people who are going through something very difficult to join others, particularly with grief, as it does feel the whole world has stopped, and your world has stopped, and the whole world is going on, and it could be very isolative. And I think having people who you could have universality with and could relate to. Every person is unique, every loss is unique, so there is that aspect of it, but collectively you could share that joined connection that only you and that person really understand from going through. So I'm glad
Mhm,
that you really shared the power that the group has in really healing people who want to self isolate and retreat to find connectivity.
mhm. Yes, absolutely. And that brings to mind, by the way, in case anyone missed the other interview for this book, which is Shining Light Parents Speak. And this is all the interviews with so many of these parents whose children are on the other side. Um, Dr. Mark Pitstick led those interviews. And again, it's that discussion of what other people have gone through, how it was for them, what's happening for them, maybe how did they transform. Um, more, the better will help shape. If you're here in your pain, but you can just stay in your pain and isolate yourself. Yeah, that is choice. But once you start reaching out and hearing others, it will begin to shift. It will begin to morph. It will transform. And you will look back and eventually see what's happening. You may not notice it at the moment, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, I went as a presenter to the Helping Parents Heal conference in
I was there.
Phoenix, and obviously there's a dichotomy with how we mourn and how we grieve, right? The mourning is the outer presentation, grief is more kind of a private thing. It's not always incongruency, but I'm sure you saw what I saw where yes, there was certainly emotions and tears, but the large, emotion that I had was joy, people having conversations, laughing. I don't think it was just the alcohol at the bar. I think there was a lot more. I could have been, a niche part of it, but there was certainly a lot of joy, which gave me hope that through the greatest, tragedies that one could see, that life could continue, that connections can be formed, that growth could happen, and that was evidential unfolding right in front of my eyes. I don't know if you felt that as well,
Oh,
but
oh,
it's amazing.
yes. It's amazing. That was my 3rd conference, and I can't wait for the next one in next year. And, because it's so beautiful, you say joyful, yes, love. I just feel it's like you walk in and you're like, love, and you can feel all of that energy, and it is transformational. For someone who maybe hasn't experienced that kind of feeling around this grief, and you come in and you find that your grief and joy can coexist. It's possible, and you can allow that. Um, so yeah, it's beautiful what's going on. I love how, every parent has a badge on. Well, they've got their badge, but then they have their child right there with them. And the conversation can start with, tell me about your child. So, yes, hello, my name is, and your child. I mean, right there, right there with you. Your child is not forgotten. Your child is always with you. And community is a beautiful way to reinforce that. And especially that conference. It's
Mhm.
so amazing.
Oh, it's wonderful, and I love that they do that because so much of fixation on, whether that's religion is on the ending of things, right? And, what Helping Parents Heal does, and I think what a lot of the Shining Light parents stand for, is the story that their loved one lived, and to lean into the life that they lived, and to
Mhm.
continue to share those stories, and That's reminds me of the ultimate quote by, Nobel Peace Prize winner Elie Wiesel, who said that God created us because God loves stories, and we're all the compilation of God's stories, and I think what,
Yes.
you're doing in so many of those shining like parents is honoring the life that they lived and living through them in a way. So I think that's beautiful,
Oh,
keeps your memory alive.
yes. Oh, I love that quote. That is, I have to, write that one down. And interestingly, if you are getting signs, dreams, by the way, um, are if you have those, I know some parents say they haven't had one yet, but then I hear of someone who says after a year, "Oh my gosh, I had a dream." Those are continued connections, and I think one parent once said, "Oh, but all the memories ended the day they left," and I'm like, "No, they didn't."
Mhm,
I still have so many continued connections, which to me are still memories. I can talk to Eric right now and say, "Remember that dream when you came to me and did blah, blah, blah?"
mhm.
And it's true. Or remember that time you put the numbers on the door at the hotel or so the
The
memories.
spirit visitations, yeah, they're profound, and I think a lot of people, they'll just, doubt everything. They have a hard time ever believing there's continuity, which is logical because I could understand if you see yourself as this, how is it logically possible for something else to go on? But I think you have to really track, what's going on, the probability behind these things, which gets me into my segue. Was there, I know Suzanne Giesemann has this term called NOE, like a no other explanation thing, which is great. I love, Suzanne's got all these acronyms that are wonderful. With her military background, she is able to really marinate that into spirituality. But is there like a point that you knew without a shadow of a doubt that you could look back on, they're like, "Alright, like, say no more, I know you're here, dude," like, not saying that came through, like, necessarily from a medium, but through, like, a direct
Oh, yeah.
experience with, your son Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. And this one, all since you said that told me like earlier on, so I'm going to go with one of the earlier ones. At 3 months after Eric's passing, my family, so I've got my other three adult children and my husband, and there was a close family friend niece who was having a birthday. She was turning 5. Anyway, so we were close to them, and we all went. And as we're, excuse me, entering the party, I'm feeling the heaviness of Eric's not here. He would have been here.
Mm,
But I corrected myself. I said, "No, he's here." And I believe, I just had to remind myself, "No, well, he is. I know he's not here physically, but he's here. He wouldn't miss it." We go in after a little while where there's about 8 of us, a group standing around in a circle holding plates with some food. And all of a sudden, right here in my peripheral vision, so clear, was Eric. He had a colorful shirt on. It was like a Hawaiian shirt, like he's at a party. He had the little facial hair, his dark hair. He's looking in the center, towards the middle of the circle, like he's standing, like he's part of the circle, like he's listening and he's right here. So of course I look and his image dissolves, which by the way is explained by, I think it's Mark Anthony about, what's going on with the whole quantum physics, which is so
mhm,
cool. And I thought, oh, that explains it. That yes, they're there. And sometimes certain parts of our brain or eye catch it.
mhm,
And I was very calm, even though I was so overjoyed. And I just continued on in the party. And as we left, I tell my family because they're on board. And they were like, "Whoa, that's amazing." I said, "He was letting me know, hey, I'm here. I
mhm.
really am here." It was so clear, so obvious. And so, yeah, that was the first. I had another similar experience a couple years later. And yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah,
That was a gift, that you were able to have and just, no words, it really just gave you that without a shadow of a doubt, knowing, Eric is still here. I mean, for viewers, listening who wanted to really know a little bit more about Eric, because I think it's important to really learn from loved ones and how they lived and what they stood for. What did you personally learn from Eric and, viewers, that were significant pieces that Eric really kind of contributed to the world, like things that he stood for. How could we honor, Eric? I know it's hard to do that in just a short amount of time with all the years that he was, here. And again, but how could we really honor him if you were to like think of a snapshot, energy that he gave to the planet and to the world, or something that he stood for?
Thank you, Jacob. I love talking about him. He was so humble. He was a funny guy. He had this dry sense of humor. He was kind and compassionate, and I say humble because he was the kind of person that if he came to a party or you met him for the first time, rather than tell you about himself, he would wanna know about you. He From what I heard from others that talked after his passing, he made you feel like you mattered, like you were important, and, even a couple of friends of ours, they're our age, they're older, and they remembered how the last time they saw him, he sat down with them and took time to hear about them.
Mhm.
And he goes, what 24-year-old wants to talk to us old people? But he would do that. I had people email me that I didn't know who said, I met Eric here or there, and I knew him for a short time, and he really made a difference to me. He made me feel like I mattered.
Mm,
So I would say that is something he's taught all of us. I've heard even his friends since then say, I'm going to remember that. I'm going to be kinder because of Eric.
mhm.
I'm going to care about people. So that it's what I would say.
And I'm sure he's still true to form,
Yeah.
with I think that's one thing that our loved ones do is they keep their personality and the things that they stood for. The pain tends to go, mental illness, physical pain, all that goes, but all those things that he stood for and being kind, present, caring, empathic,
Mhm.
all principles that I'm sure the people that knew it was a big ripple effect. Do you get a sense of like what he's up to? Like I don't I'm always curious like what our loved ones are doing. I mean, is there like something that you would guess that Eric is up to, like on the other side, like a role that he has or like a task? 'Cause I often hear that loved ones are it's not a retirement home, but they're still working over there and doing things. Like what would you kind of intuit or guess that
Mm.
he is up to?
I believe that first of all, music is divine. So I know there's a lot of music going on there. He was, as I mentioned before, a musician, and he and I had a lot of talks about music, and we still do. I believe that either young people or who knows, maybe any age. I think he's
Mhm,
teaching music, playing music. I think he probably has run into some of our great musicians who have passed over and is enjoying that time with them as well. But I think he's assisting those who want to know more about music, and he's learning more too. I think
yeah.
he wanted to keep learning.
He probably helped to get Eric Clapton up there with the Helping Parents Heal thing.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, maybe.
pulling some strings over there, but,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, wonderful.
yeah.
Um, Dolores, is, um is there anything and I know you dropped so many droplets of wisdom. Is there anything else that's coming to you, whether that be a tip or a tool or just a given insight from your story for someone listening to really, work with their grief? Any insights on the two worlds of, yes, the raw, grieving part, but also the spirit realm and how the two maybe have intersectionality and can work together, or just anything else that is coming to you intuitively?
We people say, and I'm sure people have heard, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. What we do matters. Our people are all around us, our loved ones, obviously, and those people here in our where that we meet today, they matter, and the love we can offer them as well. And regarding grief, I want to say that is I know how um, brutal it is. And if you set an intention
Mhm,
to move forward and heal, again, I'm not saying you're going to be done healing one day, but if to move to a place where you can live again, where you can feel joy again. If you set an intention, you will. You will. I know that for some people, it's like, how? I don't think I'll ever get there. You can if you choose to. And if you choose not to, then that's also, it's up to you. And your loved ones are helping you along the way with
Mhm,
that. They are.
mhm.
Yeah.
And healing is not the immunization of pain, you would say, right?
Oh,
It's the
no.
ability it's the
No.
ability to work with it, because I do believe suffering is optional, but pain,
Yeah,
it's a part of our existence, and,
it is. It is.
um, have you been able to find a way to work with that or embrace that to a degree? Like, that's a part of healing, would you say, is working with the pain?
Definitely. It's, um, again, this is really out there, and it's not something I even, uh, bought into, see if you wanna put it that way, but somewhere underneath that pain is still the joy.
Mhm,
I think it was Dr. Renewal who mentioned it, but a lot of other people as well, and I've been reading about this lately, more about joy and finding the joy in everything, and I'm gonna quote someone else that I read, Eddie Hillesum, who wrote, um, they're called The Letters from Westerbork, where she was held before having to go to Auschwitz. She kept this journal that eventually was saved, and it is
mhm,
the book
yeah,
now. And I couldn't believe reading and where she was before she got to Auschwitz, and then everything was taken away. But in that holding camp for a year, she still said that thing life is still beautiful. She still found the joy. There she is in that
uh-huh,
horrible experience, but she still found that there was joy. And so that is something that I have found, and I'm learning because it's not always easy.
uh-huh,
I'm learning to not judge it as always bad, but to have the joy of knowing there's something good in here for me.
uh-huh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, Viktor Frankl also very similar, understanding from, the most dire circumstances throughout modern human history. And I also like the Albert Camus quote that says, "Within the dead of the summer, within the dead of the winter, there lies an infinite summer, and that is there is good." So,
Yeah.
yeah, people have found it, and
Yeah.
there's roads of possibility. Now, before we go, Dolores, is what would you say is the best way for people to follow you, contact you, purchase your books? Is there website or social media that you have that people could get in touch with you should they be wanting support, on their, journeys?
Absolutely. My website is called
Mhm,
Dolores Look Around. So DOLORES Look Around .com. And there you can find links to my books as well as other interviews that I've had, articles that I've written. And my social media for Instagram is Dolores Cruz Author.
mhm,
I think it's at Dolores Cruz Author, however that works, but that's the handle for Instagram. Yeah, that's the best way. I do have a blog with
mhm,
articles related to grief, which is also Dolores Look Around at blogspot.com.
mhm. Dolores Cruz, always an honor having you. Thank you for sharing all of your heartfelt wisdom. For viewers listening, I'm sure they were able to really be transformed and moved by every word that you shared. And do check out her social media pages, her books, and try to get in contact with her. If you really wanting support on your journey, she's a wonderful resource. So, Dolores, thank you for your generous time, and it's a pure joy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Jacob, for all this kind of work that you do. It's so important and so helpful. So thank you for having me.
Well, that was a lovely conversation with Dolores. I learned so much about her beautiful son, Eric, and I hope you were able to really learn different ways and how to balance and navigate your own grief and loved ones passing, and how you could still connect and look out for signs and connections for their journeys to enhance your own. So I hope that this was helpful. Certainly was a heartfelt, uh, beautiful conversation and very pure. and what Dolores was sharing, and very insightful. So, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time here on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. It was a joy to be with you all today. Thank you.